painting huge yellow stars on the roof, and Fat Tulip was at the bottom of the ladder calling up. "Thin Tim!" he shouted. "Did you just lock my door?" And Thin Tim shouted back that he couldn't remember. "What? Will you have a look in your pockets and see if you've got the key?" So Thin Tim looked in his top pocket and there wasn't anything in there, except his bus ticket from Weston-super-Mare. Looked in one back pocket, nothing except a paper clip. Looked in the other back pocket, and in the other back pocket there was an enormous hole. Thin Tim shouted down, "The key must have dropped out of the hole in my pocket." "Oh," said Fat Tulip, and started to look for it. Looked over the wall, not there. And the drain wasn't there. On the path, couldn't see it. And then he spotted the dustbin. Looked through mounds of old newspaper and spaghetti hoops and carried beans and cold egg sandwiches and couldn't see it, so he had a closer look. Oh, still he couldn't see it, so he had an even closer look. But he still couldn't see it. And then he saw 3 pots of paint that belonged to Thin Tim. One blue and one white. "Oh," thought Fat Tulip. "Key must be in there. I'll have a look." He couldn't see it. Can't feel it. Can't feel it even now. Oh, it's not here either. Just at that moment, he heard a doo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo, and Inspector Challoner, the local policeman, was standing there. "Good morning," he said. "I was round here earlier, and I noticed that your door was open and the key was still in the lock. Now listen, Squire, any burglar could have broken in and taken your furniture. So I shut the door, I locked it, and I took the key." "Oh," said Fat Tulip, "so Thin Tim hasn't got it?" "No," said the inspector, "I have. Here you are." "Oh, great," said Fat Tulip. But when he said, "Oh, great," dollops of paint came off his hands and covered the inspector's uniform. "Oh, I'm sorry," said Fat Tulip. I just went, 'Oh, great,' and the paint came off my hands and splattered on your But when he went, 'Oh, great,' the second time, he dolloped the inspector a second time. "Oh, I'm sorry," he said. "It's just that I had my hands in this paint, see, and I just went like that and he dolloped the inspector a third time. The inspector was incredibly angry, and very coldly and very quietly he picked up a dollop of paint and went all over Fat Tulip's head. Fat Tulip said, "Oh, Inspector, do you realise what you've done? You just got this dollop of paint and you picked it up and you dolloped it all over my head." And he dolloped the inspector on the head. And the inspector got a dollop and dolloped Fat Tulip, and Fat Tulip got a dollop and he dolloped the inspector, and the inspector dolloped Fat Tulip, and Fat Tulip dolloped the inspector, and the inspector dolloped Fat Tulip, and Fat Tulip dolloped the inspector, until at last they both picked up a tin of paint like this, and they tipped it over each other's heads like this. And then they realised what they'd done. "Oh dear," said Fat Tulip. "We've messed up Thin Tim's paint. He'll be furious." And then they heard the beep boop 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 noise of Thin Tim's footsteps coming down the ladder. "Oh dear," said Fat Tulip. Thin Tim looked at them both, and then he looked at the paint tray. "Ah! Great!" he said. "Pardon?" said Fat Tulip. "Ah! Fantastic!" said Thin Tim. "What?" said the inspector. "You've mixed me green paint. I said I needed an attractive green colour to paint the roof, and you've mixed it for me." And sure enough, where Inspector Challoner and Fat Tulip had put dollops of blue paint and yellow paint, it had mixed up into a great big dollop of green paint. "Your roof is going to look pretty fine with bright green stripes on," said Thin Tim. "Now, you two, you look pretty mucky. Go upstairs, have a wash, and then come up to my airing cupboard for a cup of tea and a jammy donut." "Oh, marvellous," said Fat Tulip. And they did.